The Supreme Court chamber was already tense before the proceedings began. Not chaotic, not loud, just tense in the way that happens when everyone in the room knows something historic might unfold, and no one's sure who will light the fuse. Denzel Washington was appearing as a special witness in a landmark case about artistic freedom and religious expression in film. It had been pitched as routine testimony from a respected Hollywood figure. But that was just the version the public saw. Behind the scenes, there were emails, conditions, and warnings. Denzel had only agreed to testify if he could speak truthfully about Hollywood's treatment of faith-based content. The court had agreed, or at least they said they had. But just minutes before the session began, a clerk was overheard whispering, "Justice Barrett wants to challenge him on moral authority in cinema." And Denzel's attorney heard every word. When Denzel finally took his seat at the witness table, the atmosphere was electric. He sat with quiet dignity, wearing a perfectly tailored Navy suit, his presence commanding even in silence. The justices filed in, taking their seats. Chief Justice Roberts began the questioning cordially enough. Roberts said formally, "Mr. Washington, thank you for appearing. Can you explain your perspective on religious expression in film?" Denzel responded thoughtfully, "Your Honor, I've spent 40 years in an industry that claims to celebrate diversity but often censors faith. I'm here to testify about that double standard." Justice Kagan leaned forward. "Mr. Washington, are you suggesting there's discrimination against religious content?" Denzel nodded slowly. "I'm not suggesting it, Justice Kagan. I'm stating it as fact. I've had films shelved, funding pulled, and distribution blocked because they portrayed faith positively." That's when Justice Barrett interjected, her tone surprisingly sharp. Barrett said coolly, "Mr. Washington, don't you think there's a difference between censorship and market forces? Perhaps audiences simply aren't interested in." Denzel's expression changed. He leaned forward slightly. Denzel interrupted calmly but firmly, "With respect, Justice Barrett, that's exactly the prejudice I'm talking about. The Passion of the Christ made $612 million. Heaven is for Real made $101 million. The audience exists. The suppression is systematic." Barrett's face tightened. "Are you suggesting Hollywood has an anti-religious agenda?" Denzel's voice grew stronger. "I'm not suggesting anything. I'm telling you what I've experienced for 4 decades. Scripts rewritten to remove prayer. Characters changed from believers to skeptics. Entire films buried because they might offend by showing faith positively." Justice Sotomayor tried to interject. "Mr. Washington, surely you understand that private companies have the right." Denzel turned to her. "Do they have the right to discriminate based on religious content while claiming they champion diversity? Do they have the right to blacklist actors who won't denounce their faith?" The tension in the chamber escalated palpably. Justice Barrett pressed harder. "You're making serious allegations without evidence." That's when Denzel stood up, his voice filling the sacred chamber. Denzel declared powerfully, "Without evidence? I brought receipts, Justice Barrett. Emails from studio executives saying my films were too Christian for mainstream release. Contracts with morality clauses that apply only to religious content. Documented cases of actors losing roles for refusing to mock faith on screen." He pulled out a thick folder. Denzel continued, "Here's evidence. 40 years of it. But you don't want to see it, do you? Because it challenges your comfortable assumption that discrimination only flows one way." Barrett's face flushed. "Mr. Washington, you're out of order. Now, what happens next is a moment that will go down in judicial history. This is when one of America's greatest actors delivers truth so powerful that even the Supreme Court can't handle it. If you've ever felt silenced for your beliefs, if you've ever watched your faith mocked while other views are protected, you absolutely need to see what Denzel does next. This is bigger than Hollywood, bigger than law. This is about the soul of America. Subscribe right now, this very second, because what you're about to witness will change how you see everything. Hit subscribe immediately, because they're already trying to bury this footage. Denzel's voice rose with controlled power. Out of order? I'll tell you what's out of order. A Supreme Court justice dismissing documented discrimination because it doesn't fit her worldview. You took an oath to defend all Americans' rights, not just the ones you're comfortable with. Chief Justice Roberts intervened. Mr. Washington, please. Denzel turned to him. Chief Justice, I've played lawyers, judges, and officers of this court. I researched each role extensively. You know what every good judge told me. That justice requires listening to uncomfortable truths. He faced Justice Barrett directly. Denzel's voice thundered. You can't handle the truth. The truth that Hollywood systematically discriminates against people of faith. The truth that we have a two-tiered system where mocking Christianity is art, but respecting it is propaganda. The truth that you're more interested in protecting that system than examining it. Barrett's composure cracked. How dare you? Denzel continued relentlessly. How dare I? How dare I speak truth in the highest court of the land? I thought that's what this place was for. Or is it only for truths that don't challenge your assumptions? Justice Thomas, who had been silent, suddenly spoke. Mr. Washington, can you provide specific examples? Denzel turned to him gratefully. Thank you, Justice Thomas. In 2018, I was removed from a film for refusing to remove a cross from my character's home. In 2020, a major studio canceled my production deal after I insisted on keeping a prayer scene. Last year, I was told my faith-based film would only get distribution if we removed all references to Jesus. He looked around the courtroom. Denzel continued. I've won 2 Oscars, been nominated for 10. I've proven my box office value repeatedly. Yet I can't get a film distributed if it shows faith positively. If that's not discrimination, what is? Justice Barrett tried to regain control. This isn't a trial, Mr. Washington. You're here as a witness. Denzel's response was devastating. I'm here as an American citizen whose First Amendment rights are being violated. And you're here as a justice who swore to protect those rights. So why are you protecting the violators instead? The courtroom was in complete silence. Denzel delivered his final blow. You know what's really tragic, Justice Barrett? You're a person of faith. You should understand this discrimination. But you're so concerned with appearing balanced that you're willing to let injustice continue. That's not justice. That's cowardice. Barrett sat frozen, unable to respond. Chief Justice Roberts called for a recess. We'll take a 30-minute break. As Denzel gathered his papers, he addressed the entire court one last time. Denzel said quietly but powerfully, I've played fictional characters who fought for justice. Today, I'm fighting for real justice. For every actor told to hide their faith. For every filmmaker censored for showing prayer positively. For every American whose religious expression is deemed too controversial by corporate gatekeepers. If this court won't protect them, who will? He walked out with dignity, leaving 9 justices in stunned silence. What happened next would reshape the conversation about religious freedom in America. After Denzel's dramatic exit, the Supreme Court chamber remained in unprecedented chaos. Justice Barrett sat visibly shaken, her face pale. The other justices exchanged glances, clearly unprepared for what had just transpired. The gallery was buzzing with shocked whispers. Chief Justice Roberts tried to restore order. This court will recess for deliberation. But the damage was done. Within minutes, footage leaked from the courtroom, unprecedented in Supreme Court history. In the hallway, Denzel was surrounded by other witnesses and attorneys, many with tears in their eyes. A young Christian filmmaker grabbed his hand. Mr. Washington, you just said what we've all been afraid to say. Thank you. An attorney whispered, I've argued here 5 times. I've never seen anything like that. You changed history today. Within an hour, hashtag Denzel Speaks Truth was trending worldwide. The leaked footage spread like wildfire. Denzel Washington just told the Supreme Court what America has been thinking for years. When an actor shows more courage than our justices, we have a problem. You can't handle the truth will go down in history. Legal experts were stunned. A Harvard law professor commented, In 200 years of Supreme Court history, we've never seen testimony like this. Denzel Washington just exposed the court's blind spot on religious discrimination. Conservative and liberal voices united in support. I'm an atheist, but Denzel is right. Why is mocking faith acceptable, but practicing it controversial? Justice Barrett freezing when confronted with truth about religious discrimination is telling. The Supreme Court was forced to address the incident. Their brief statement only made things worse. The court maintains proper decorum during all proceedings. This triggered massive backlash. Decorum? Denzel exposed discrimination, and you're worried about decorum? Within 48 hours, the impact was seismic. Congressional hearings were called on Hollywood discrimination. The DOJ announced investigations into religious discrimination in entertainment. Dozens of actors came forward with similar stories. Major studios faced immediate pressure. Denzel released a powerful statement. I didn't plan to raise my voice in the Supreme Court. But when Justice Barrett dismissed documented discrimination, I remembered every actor who lost work for their faith, every filmmaker censored for showing prayer, every story untold because it honored God. Someone had to speak for them. Justice Barrett faced intense criticism. Legal scholars noted her silence spoke volumes about the court's blind spots. 3 months later, in an unprecedented move, the Supreme Court issued a clarification on religious discrimination in entertainment, essentially validating Denzel's testimony. At the Academy Awards, Denzel received a standing ovation before he even spoke. He said simply, "Sometimes the most important performance isn't on screen. It's standing up for truth when power wants you to sit down." A year later, multiple faith-based films found major distribution. Studios created new policies protecting religious expression. The phrase, "you can't handle the truth," became a rallying cry for artistic freedom. In a later interview, Denzel reflected, "I've played many roles. But that day in the Supreme Court, I wasn't playing anyone. I was just a man of faith tired of watching discrimination disguised as sophistication." Justice Barrett's freeze told me everything. Even good people can become comfortable with injustice when it doesn't affect them. When asked if he regretted his outburst, he smiled. "Regret speaking truth to power? Never. The only thing I regret is that it took me 40 years to do it." The incident became known as the Denzel moment in legal circles, when celebrity testimony changed judicial perspective on religious discrimination. Justice Barrett never publicly addressed the confrontation, but court watchers noted she became notably more protective of religious expression in subsequent cases. Denzel Washington had done more than shock the Supreme Court. He'd exposed a blind spot in American justice, that discrimination against faith was so normalized, even a justice couldn't see it until confronted with passionate truth. He'd shown that sometimes the most powerful script isn't written by Hollywood. It's written by conscience and delivered with courage. "You can't handle the truth" became more than a movie line. It became a challenge to every institution that claims to protect freedom while enabling discrimination. And Justice Barrett's freeze became a symbol of what happens when comfortable assumptions meet uncomfortable truths. The highest court in the land had been schooled by an actor, not acting, just telling the truth they couldn't handle.